Hello everybody, RobosCloud9 here, and today I'm bringing you guys another model, and I'm going to build again the Polar Lights Star Trek NX-01. This is the refit edition. It's their latest NX-01. NX-01 is from the Enterprise TV series. It's a prequel to the original series, and I quite like the series, to be honest. It's hit and miss with a lot of fans. And if you recall, I did build this one maybe about 2 years ago now, and so it was actually, I think, it could have been the first or one of the first videos where I stopped doing a slideshow and started doing a video presentation like this. So if you want to do that, you just type in NX-01 in the search bar on the channel page here, and you'll find it pretty quick, I think. So I've really liked this ship, like I said, and I've wanted to build 3 more of these, and I want to build the NX-02 Columbia. I'll show you some of the differences there. It gives you the parts for that. And I've always wanted to build the Mirror Universe. Here's a picture there from the top. The Mirror Universe Enterprise. I always liked that one. I just found some decals for that one, actually, and I might just pick up those decals and one day when I find this kit, you know, go ahead and build that one. So in my original NX video, I did talk about some of the differences between the two, because the Polar Lights, Round 2, who owns Polar Lights now, they did do a couple modifications to the mold, and they're very slight, but there are some subtle differences in this one. So let's get a look on in the kit here. It's a bit of a tough box to pop open here, and let me just put this aside. So the first thing we're going to get here, we're greeted by the 2 hull saucer sections here, and nice light gray, kind of a greenish tint plastic. This is a snap kit. It's 1/1000 scale, so it matches a lot of ships that are coming out nowadays. And the detail on it's pretty nice. It's fairly accurate compared to the model, the CGI model of the Enterprise. We've got recessed panel lines, and again, pretty fair, pretty good detail. There's all the windows, and they can be drilled out a little bit for a little bit more emphasis, but they're quite nice, I find. So there you can see quite a bit of detail there. And here's the bottom half of the saucer, and it has about the same amount of detail on it, I say, as the top. So this is going to be a custom NX class that I'm going to build, and I'll get to more of that later on. Here we have the display stand. I'm not going to use this display stand. I'm going to do what I did with the refit version, make a custom display stand. And I'm going to save this base actually for another project. So I'm super happy to have one of these. That's going to be for a Yamato model project coming up in the future. So I guess we'll open up this bag here next. My apologies if the crinkling is very loud here, with all this plastic. So here we have the engines, the warp nacelles. Again, pretty nice detail. This will be the 3rd time I've built this kit, so kind of remembering all the pros and cons about the ship. So this is basically the difference between the Enterprise NX-01 and the Columbia NX-02. The Enterprise has a rounded deflector or dish here in the front, and the Columbia has a more squared one here. It also has, instead of 1 kind of little antenna, the Columbia has 2, and that's it. Aside from a couple of other little decals, it's basically the same ship, with a few differences in the interior, if I remember correctly. But since we're not building the interior, it's irrelevant. So these go on to, these are all the sides that go on the saucer section. They fit on here, on the bottom half of the saucer, and they fit just in between like that. And it's a pretty good fit for the model. I think the only fit issues that I had were the warp engines, getting them to stick on. So hopefully this time, the third time, is a charm and they'll be much better. So these are the new sprue pieces that you get. This bag here. This is basically the big deal with the kit. And there's a couple pieces in the clear parts. I'll get to those in a moment. But this is the hull section, the secondary hull, and yeah, all new tooling. You were able to get this as an upgrade kit from a couple aftermarket places, but now it's standard with this particular kit. So you can build the refit version, or you can build the standard version. I'm going to be building the standard version because I already built this refit version. I quite liked it, and again, go watch the video series there and I'll show you all the little ins and outs and the little snafus that I ran into when I was building this one. Really excellent detail. The detail is a little crisper on these pieces than on the older Polar Lights ones here, but still very balanced out with each other. So the last one here is the clear parts, and as I mentioned before in that one, I couldn't figure out what some pieces were here, and they're actually kind of gone on this one. But what we get for new pieces here, right here, this section used to be the display stand. It used to have these three stands that would come out here. They got rid of those and they replaced them with these new Bussard collectors. These are for the new ones. There's these little rods that would stick out of there. But everything else is identical in that respect. So yeah, that's one of the things I forgot to mention here for those of you who haven't gone and looked. And yeah, I'm gonna have to fill these in here, but I've actually got it right here. So here it is. This one broke and I replaced it just a little while ago, but these are all the three stands that it comes on. Oh, look at that. Ha! I was testing paint on there. Interesting. So yeah, let me just pull this all off here. Take a moment. Okay. So yeah, we get these three holes here, and these are for the stands. They got rid of all of those, except for these two, because this is where part of the pylons come down into the secondary hull. So I'm going to have to fill those in. But they replaced the stand with the big round metal one there. That's kind of a custom for the Polar Lights now. So just have one there on the bottom. So that's the only difference between the original, and this was the first edition of this kit when it came out. That's the only difference between these two kits. There's a first edition, there's a second edition, and then they came out, Polar Lights came out with this new retool, with the refit version rather. And so there's just those very slight differences there. But otherwise it's the exact same model. So a couple things I plan to do on this kit. And I'll get to them in a bit of, I'll get to them to more detail, but just as a bit of a heads up, things I want to do in this particular build, I want to make a custom starship. So for that, I'm going to buy some decal paper. I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to make some decals and what to do with those. So again, we're going to make custom decals. I'm going to do some Aztecing, which I kind of did on the refit version over there. But I'm going to do it a little bit more intricate on this one. So we're going to do some Aztecing. That's going to involve masking. Aztecing, for those of you unfamiliar with the term, is like all the hull, is all the plating that goes on the ship. All these little squares and things like that. And the idea behind it was that they would use these sheets of metal and they wouldn't kind of all be the same. And it makes these interesting patterns. I'd like to try that in particular with this one. So I'm going to get into some Aztecing, and oops, I forgot two things here. The instructions and the decals. So let's take a quick look. The instructions are really simple. It's a a small poster compared to others. So here we have the decaling guide, and they have all testers' colors here on the side, with the exception of Tamiya for the overall hull color, which is what they have on the bottom of the box, which is not a metallic gray color. I don't know why they have JN gray. That's the gray I used to paint my Japanese aircraft with. It's completely wrong. As you can see on the side here, it's this. Look at that. It's a metallic gray color, and then on the bottom of the box, they actually have the ship painted with this color, and it's not bad. I can't quite get it to fit in there. Sorry, it'll be upside down, but I don't get it. It doesn't it doesn't look bad, but it's not accurate. Maybe it is. Maybe there's a version of it somewhere, but I don't get it. Anyways, but yeah, as far as the ease of the instructions go, really simple. It's a basic snap kit, so you can basically put this whole thing together, and you don't even have to paint it, and you have a nice looking kit. There are no stickers included. Sometimes these pulley lights include stickers and decals. Not this time. They're all decals. And I remember these were a bit fussy but manageable, and they look pretty good when they're all down. So they do actually conform pretty well. So here, here's the differences. We have the NX-01 Enterprise. Here's the Columbia, NX-01, NX-02. And there's these two here, Enterprise and Columbia. That's it, basically, as far as it goes. You're not going to run into any problems with them, I think. So you can build either one of those two, and then the refit. But like I said, I'm going to make a custom starship. This is one I've wanted to do ever since I built my first one, actually. I've always wanted to build this one, and I decided to have some fun and build it, and not worry about anything else, and just branch off and indulge myself. So the other thing I'm going to do is make a custom display stand. This is the original display stand. It's a silhouette of the NX-01, and as I did for the refit, I'm going to make another one like this out of resin, so it'll be a bit taller, and then there'll be the main peg in the middle here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and get started on this kit. And yeah, I think this is going to be a really fun build. Alright, so this might be weird to a lot of people. But yeah, this is going to be what my custom starship is. In the Star Trek universe, they only made 4 NX class starships. That's kind of about as far as we know. We know about the Enterprise and the Columbia and the NX-03 and NX-04. They stated in the series that they were making 4, but they never gave them names or anything like that. So for my ship, I'm going to go with the NX-05 because it's non-existent. It's only my imagination. And kind of the idea where I got this ship is I have a weird habit with Star Trek ships. Like when I get a model or some kind of kit of them, I like to look at them upside down. And I kind of like to imagine what the ship would be like if things were kind of reversed. So in this instance, if the Enterprise was like this, and the engines were down. And I really like that idea for this NX-05 here. It's basically an NX class, but the engines would be like this instead of upright. And so what I've done is there are some panel lines here on the side. I'm going to get this apart if I can. There we go. And I've taken my Tamiya scribing saw here, and I've gone into the panel line, and I'm just going to do this bit off screen here, and I'm almost done cutting this one out. And just a bit more here. Come on. Oh, yeah, I'm cutting in the wrong line. Derp. Derp, derp. There we go. Yeah, 2 seconds. Start cutting all over again. Anyways, so that is my goal with this ship, is to have it like this, and yeah, the engine's downward. So what that's going to mean for me is I have to fill in this hole with putty. I have to let that dry. I think I'm gonna get rid of these fins because these are on the bottom, and I'm not sure what they're for. I did hear once a speculation that they were kind of like a docking clamp, like that the ship could be held on by those. I'm not exactly sure what they're for. If they're just there to look nice, that's basically my best guess. But yeah, that's kind of the whole point of doing this particular build. So the next part here is to fill in a whole bunch of pieces. Now I need the clear parts, and I'm just going to take my hobby knife because I remember this, and I'm going to make these navigation lights on either side here. I'm going to make these bigger because yeah, I remember both times I ran into problems with these things. They did not fit properly. They're supposed to kind of snap in, but you can push and pry all you want. They really don't want to move without a lot of reinforcement there. So hopefully these are big enough. And so we've actually got a spare one there, which is quite nice. And let's cut one out. Might not even be big enough. They look pretty big there. Oh, that's flash. Let's try it. Yeah, look at that. Perfect fit. So yeah, I'm going to leave that in there. And after I get these sections on, these are what go on next, part of the sides. And I'm going to these snap in, but I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on them as well. And once all of these are down, and this is more secure, I'm just going to take my hobby knife and, clean those up a little bit, maybe sand them down a bit more. But yeah, they actually fit. So I'm glad I remembered to do that this time. I got to do that on the top and the bottom. So yeah, that's basically what I'm going to be working at here for now, is to just get all those pieces put in. That's going to take me a little while to do, not forever, thankfully. But yeah, I got to go get at that. There's quite a bit of stuff to do here. So I'll be back once I've assembled the hull halves here, the saucer section. And one of the other things I'm going to do here is I've got my sanding stick with me, and what I want to do is take the pieces here, and they look pretty good to me, but what I want to do is I want to sand them down like this on the bottom, and I just want to make the bottom more level. That way I don't have, I can try and ruin the possibility of having a gap on there. So it just sits there a bit more flush. And then what I'm going to do once that's done is I'm just going to take this and just sand down the whole thing. That way when I put the other section on, again, I run less risk of a possibility of having a little bit of a gap popping up out of there. Just make it all nice and smooth, and then I don't have to worry about it later. So I'm going to go ahead and get to this, like I said before, and I'll be back with more when I'm done. Alright, I got quite a bit of work done here, kind of. I sanded off all that detail, and what I'm going to do, I just applied some Mr. Surfacer 1200 here. Just to prime it, just to see how my scratches sanding look. Just needs a bit more in a couple areas. It's not bad though. And then I'm going to, I sanded off some of the raised areas here. There's these little squares. You can kind of see them on here. It's probably blending in pretty well. But there's these little squares here, and there's this kind of bigger rectangle here. And I'm just going to replicate that with some styrene here. I've just got this bit of styrene. It's pretty thin, but what I'm going to do is just cut it out, all the little shapes, glue them down, and then I'm just going to take my sandpaper and I'm just going to lightly sand them down a little more so they're just a bit flush. So then there became a problem with the warp nacelles. When I have them upright, they kind of taper off in the back. I've actually got my refit one right here. So here's the refit one. You can see here they kind of angle upward here. And so if I were to have these upside down, they would be angling downward, and I don't want that. So there's a bit of a problem, is there's a lot of different detail on the bottom and the top. Well, sorry, this is the top, this is the bottom. Alright, anyways, moving on. So my only kind of issue with it was just to get this to flip upside down, because it would be a lot more work for me to have to you know, cover this in, fill it in, and then find out a way how to cut this out so everything fits properly. So I came up with just kind of a simpler solution. I don't think you're going to kind of, you know, you'd notice it as well, as I just cut the ends off here, and they will fit like that. So what I have to do is I just need to take some sanding sticks and I just need to sand these down so they're a little bit more flush on either side, and then I'm gonna glue them down like that. That'll be kind of one of the last things that I do after I get all the clear parts in here. So I've got this one here, and this one just needs to be sanded down or cut out just a bit more. It's, you know, it's a bit more work than I want to do, but compared to the work that I could do, you know, it's not as much work, or very little work at all. So let me see if I can try and... Yeah, I'm actually just cutting through the peg, which I need to get rid of anyways, so let me just cut that off. There we go. So, there we go. So that's what I've been up to right now. So, again, what I'm just going to do is... next thing I'm going to do is rescribe all this detail in here, just so it looks like all the panel lines are there and stuff, and these little... all these little panel lines there match up, and you wouldn't know that they were there. And again, those were these. I gotta reach my other one here. I think I have them both close. Whoops! Don't do that. There we go. So yeah, remove these pegs in here, or these bars. I don't know exactly what they are. Anyways. Went online trying to figure out what the heck this thing is officially called. I thought it was a reactor of some kind, and I got a couple different responses from people trying to figure out what it was in schematics, so I'm not sure exactly what it is. But anyways, it had some pegs on here, and what was really cool, on the older tooled one here, it's part of the model, but because they have to replace it with a reactor that's lower, I'm going to just call it a reactor, you know, on the lower hull here. It's a removable part, and they give you these pieces to fill it in there on the sides. And so what's really cool is I just cut off the pegs, and it fits basically perfectly like that. So I've got that to keep, and I don't have to do a lot. The next thing on my plan is, this is the display stand I was telling you guys about. I think I mentioned it's made out of resin. It's cast off of this one here, and I'm gonna go give this part here to my dad because he does all this resin making stuff, and so he's gonna make me another one quite like this, and I'm gonna cut the peg down again, and it'll just fit nicely like that. So that's what I'm doing right now, and it's a lot of cleaning, a lot of rescribing. There's a lot of dust everywhere, but it's gonna look great in the end. So back to the grindstone. So I figured I should do a quick kind of tutorial here for you guys, just to show you how to use a scribing tools and stuff like that. I've done this a couple times, but it's always nice to have it as a review. So there's a couple things I use for rescribing. These are Tamiya's scribing saws, and well, you saw I use them to cut that. But they are meant for scribing, and you just kind of go over them like this. They're really simple to use. I really like these things. The only problem with them is although the photo etch is pretty strong, they come in a photo etch metal sheet. Although the metal is pretty strong, they can bend, so you have to watch out for that. The other thing I like to use, and this is probably the best scribing tool that I own, it's just my pin vise with a sewing needle in here, and it's pretty strong that way, so I like that as well. You can also use your hobby knife. I use my hobby knife a lot, like if, for example, like right here, there's going to be a line going here, so I usually just go like this and kind of trace in a way where it's going to go. I've also used a tool like this. This is from a compass, and I don't use that one nearly as much anymore. And one of the things I've recently purchased is the Tamiya Plastic Scriber #2. Don't know what happened to the #1, but this is a really simple tool to use. It's made by Olfa. For those of you who are familiar with Olfa, they make a lot of tools and stuff, and it says Olfa right there on the bottom, and they just put the Tamiya name on it, and it's black instead of the usual kind of yellow-orange. But it's a nice little tool because it's got a couple spare blades in it there. The only negative side to this thing is the blade is pretty thick, so you're not going to get really thin. But for this model, this is going to be perfect. So all you do with this thing is you just go down the line like so. If I need to fill in some more, I can make these. I'm going to make these ones a little deeper here. It makes pretty nice grooves into the plastic. It's fairly nice. I'm quite happy with it, but again, the only problem with it is the panel lines are not thin. This is the other tool that I use a lot. It's just a sheet of metal. I use this as a ruler instead of plastic because plastic's easier to scratch. So I can just go like this. There we go. So, quite a bit of work to do, but it's worth it in the end when you get all that looking nice. So this is going to take me, again, quite a while to do, but I just thought I would show some of these different scribing tools that you can buy out there. And there's many more different tools for scribing. Like Trumpeter makes one similar to this, but I do believe the blade is a lot thinner. I would like to try that one out one day if I ever get around to finding one. So, back to the grindstone.